Greg Scarpa's connection to John Gotti. Gregory Scarpa Sr. was born on the south side of Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, New York, and would turn out to be one of the most ruthless, cold-blooded hitmen ever during his time with the Colombo crime family as a capo regime. A capo regime, or capo, is a term used by the mob to describe a captain or made member of Cosa Nostra who leads a crew of soldiers and also has strong influence within the organization and major social status as well, and reports directly to a boss or underboss himself. Capo regime is a symbol of high rank and is highly sought after by up-and-comers in Cosa Nostra, which made Scarpa a powerful and respected man. Scarpa was given the nickname the Grim Reaper and was accused by the FBI of having killed at least 100 people during his criminal career with the Colombo family. Scarpa was born to first-generation immigrants from Italy who settled in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. He grew up in the Great Depression era and as a kid would help his father sell coal throughout the 5 boroughs of New York. But instead of following his father's footsteps, Scarpa had his eyes on the neighborhood wise guys, dressed in fancy suits, driving nice cars, and always had money but never seemed to be working. As it would turn out, Greg's older brother Sal was connected with the Colombo family, and in the 1950s, Sal Scarpa introduced his brother Greg Scarpa to what was then known as the Profaci family, and later came to be known as the Colombo family, caused by 3 different internal wars in the 50s and 60s, which I will cover in a future video. Scarpa was taken under the wing by a man named Charlie the Sige Lo Cicero, a capo in the Profaci family, after calling Scarpa into a sit-down and liked what he had to say. Lo Cicero taught Scarpa all about loan sharking, bookmaking, and how to do shakedowns on local businesses. Scarpa put in work and people feared him because of his size and capabilities. Lo Cicero convinced the Profacis they can trust Scarpa, and in 1949 he was put on record as an associate, collecting debts and cracking skulls if need be for the Colombos. It's said that Greg Scarpa instilled fear in people and many of his victims were frightened of him. He was 6 foot and 200 pounds of muscle and had the perfect size for the job. Over the next several years, Scarpa would prove his capabilities and loyalty to the Profacis, and in a short time became a big earner and strong enforcer, ultimately paying off in 1953 when the bosses decided to give Greg Scarpa the ultimate test and ordered him to kill a man, which Scarpa did and is said to have went off without a hitch. Because of that hit, Scarpa was officially made with the Profaci family, which went on to be known as the Colombo family. After being made with the Profacis, Scarpa soon became a protege of Carmine the Snake Persico, another hitter with the Profaci family. Persico had a big reputation from the time him and Crazy Joe Gallo stormed the Park Sheridan's barbershop and chopped down Albert Anastasia in his barber seat in 1957. Even though police never identified anyone in the shooting, all the gangsters knew who did it. It's said that Scarpa was inspired by Carmine Persico and was planning some ruthlessness of his own. As informants would later testify, Scarpa was responsible for many murders, and information would come out that Scarpa, who operated with the Colombos from 1953 until his arrest in 1983, was simultaneously cooperating with the FBI as a confidential informant. When he made a deal with the feds after being caught in an armed robbery and truck hijacking ring, and in exchange for his freedom, Scarpa supplied the FBI with information when they needed. The agents wanted info on his brother Sal, but Scarpa is said to have refused to give him up. But yet the feds eventually started paying Scarpa as an informant, as well as allowed him to operate freely on the street, where Scarpa remained active with the mob and continued to commit many murders and use his relationship with the agents to get information on arrests coming down on other cooperators and would get times and locations. And according to Larry Mazza, Scarpa appeared to be given access to certain FBI uniforms, radios, and bulletproof vests supplied by the FBI, and every time Scarpa would be caught doing something wrong, the FBI would let him off the hook and even helped him operate through the deadly Arena Persico War. One of Scarpa's craziest hits was on a man named Vincent Fasaro, who Scarpa shot in the head while he was standing on a ladder hanging Christmas decorations on the door of his home on Bay 11th in Brooklyn. Scarpa would ultimately end up contracting AIDS through a blood transfusion after an ulcer surgery in 1986. Scarpa was embarrassed of this and kept it to himself, telling others he had cancer. Scarpa sued the hospital and was awarded $300,000 cash payment for his family. Not long after the surgery, Scarpa was indicted on federal racketeering charges, which involved 3 murders. Scarpa would die in prison in 1994 due to AIDS-related complications, but there is still more to tell about the interesting life of Greg Scarpa Sr., starting with claims made by former mate man with the Colombos, Larry Mazza, who claimed Scarpa allowed him to have an affair with Scarpa's wife, which started when he was 18 years old. Mazza claims he was just a straight-edge delivery boy who was seduced by Scarpa's wife, Linda Shiro, one day when making a delivery. That night, one thing led to another, and before he knew it, they were having sex. Larry wasn't aware of who Scarpa was right away, but Linda kept pushing Scarpa to take Mazza under the wing, which is how Larry Mazza got his start in the Colombo family, with Scarpa as his mentor, and would go from delivery boy to an enforcer, being involved in plotting 25 murders, as well as committing some of his own. Mazza found out Scarpa knew about his affair with his wife, when one day Scarpa sat Mazza down and told him he knew what was going on. Mazza feared he would be killed, but was surprised when Scarpa started laughing and gave Mazza a hug and proceeded to tell him nobody else could know or they would both be killed. Mazza kept it quiet. Another crazy story regarding Scarpa was the story of Mississippi burning, where in the summer of 1964, Mississippi FBI field agents recruited Scarpa to help them find 3 civil rights workers who the FBI believed were murdered by the KKK, but could not find their bodies. It said they hired Scarpa so he could use not-so-legal torture techniques to find the whereabouts of the 3 civil rights workers, being that the case was gaining publicity and the feds were desperate to put an end to the racial tensions. It said when Scarpa arrived in Mississippi, he was given a gun and money to complete the task. Scarpa kidnapped a TV salesman, as well as a secret member of the KKK, Lawrence Byrd, from his store, and brought Byrd to the Camp Shelby Army base, where Scarpa pistol-whipped him and stuck a gun down his throat, ultimately getting Byrd to give up the location of the bodies, and allegedly, in January of 1966, Scarpa was called to Mississippi again to help agents solve the murder of a man named Vernon Dahmer, who was killed in a fire set by the KKK. But Scarpa and the FBI had a disagreement about Scarpa's payment for services, and Scarpa was dropped as an informant. Not much information can be found on a relationship between John Gotti and Greg Scarpa Sr., but we do know that Scarpa informed to his FBI handler, Lindley DeVecchio, about Gotti and bosses of other families plotting to take out Rudy Giuliani in 1986, who was at the time responsible for the arrest of 4 of the 5 mob bosses in New York, and according to testimony given by FBI agent William Bolander, in which he referenced a debriefing report written by DeVecchio regarding Scarpa's cooperation, stating Carmine Persico and John Gotti suggested murdering Giuliani, who was the Manhattan U.S. attorney leading the prosecution of the mob in New York City. But according to Scarpa, the bosses of the Bonanos, Lucchese's, and Genovese rejected the idea. During the court's break, the judge on the case asked Bolander about the Mississippi burning story regarding Scarpa and if it was true, which Bolander responded by telling the judge there was, quote, a vague reference about Greg Scarpa going to Mississippi in his FBI file and a mention of an investigation down south, but there was no further details. According to an interview with Larry Mazza on the Donut Shop Chronicles YouTube channel, Mazza states that Gotti had influence with the Colombos in the form of a longtime friend, Joey Scopo, who was a member of the Colombos and had the ear of Colombo boss at the time, Vic Arena, and went on to say it was well known that Gotti and Scopo had planned that if Arena would win the war, afterwards Gotti and Scopo planned to take Vic Arena out so Scopo could step up in his place in order to give Gotti and Scopo 2 votes on the commission instead of 1. The Arena-Persico War started in 1991 when the acting boss of the Colombos, Vic Arena, tried taking over the family from Carmine Persico after he was in prison, which caused the family to split into 2 factions, sparking a 2-year battle in the streets of New York, which ended in 1993, resulting in 12 deaths and Vic Arena being locked up, ultimately making Persico the winner of the war. Needless to say, Greg Scarpa was a very interesting man who played the game to win by any means necessary, including committing murders and becoming an FBI informant. Add that to the secret FBI missions and weird swinger lifestyle, including multiple wives and girlfriends. Scarpa Sr. is a hard man to put a finger on, besides saying Greg Scarpa was really only looking out for himself at the end of the day. As I continue to do research and find new information, I will create more content and post it as it comes. Although I couldn't really find much info regarding a connection between Gotti and Scarpa, Scarpa's story alone is interesting enough. Please drop a comment in the comments section and let us know if there's any information I may have missed. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button, and if you haven't already, click subscribe and tap the notification bell for updates on all new content. Thank you for your support and thank you for watching. Until next time, it's Wise Guy TV.